Okay, recording is in progress. That means we're not exactly live, but we're not going to do any retakes or edits. So everybody that's watching from home or on their mobile device, welcome to the next edition of Meet the Founders. Tonight, I'm joined by Ms. Theresa Cross, one of the co-founders of VetCoin. And welcome, Theresa.
Thank you.
I heard, I saw a joke. I'm a big fan of memes, and I saw a meme just this afternoon, actually. And it said, for all the non-Florida residents, warning, we're still getting warmed up. Still preheating. It said, we're still preheating, which I thought was great because I've been not a fan of 90 degrees and high humidity, but I know it's just going to get warmer.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes. I'm in the comfort of my wonderful AC that works.
So important in the summertime.
It is.
So this is really great. I'm glad we're going to have this conversation. You're one of the folks that I was really looking forward to sitting down and chatting with. For those that don't know, Theresa and I work about 40 feet apart from each other, and we see each other once a week, maybe. It's very bizarre, but that's the nature of the place where we work. But Theresa, if you could take a few minutes and just kind of tell the audience who you are.
Okay. Thank you, Russ. Hello, everyone. Since I spent pretty much most of my adult life in the service of our nation, I always start with my military, who am I? So militarily, I am U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel retired Theresa Cross. I was born and raised in Syracuse, New York. I'm the youngest of 5 of my mother's children and next to the youngest in a blended family of 16 total. I have
16,
an uncle.
not 16 total children.
Yes, combined, blended, mom and dad.
Wow.
Yes.
Cheers.
I wouldn't say I come from a military family necessarily, but I do have an uncle who is a Vietnam era veteran. And then I have 2 sisters who served in the Army. My uncle is the only one, but he's a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and 2 sisters who served in the Army. And then I have 3 nephews who served in the Army and one who's still serving, and he coinkadinkly is military intelligence also. I served a combination of 30 years, both enlisted, ROTC, and then as an officer I started off as a finance specialist, a Spanish linguist enlisted, and then intelligence and strategy as an officer. I've been retired for 3 years and continue to serve as a contractor with US SOCOM, where I work with you 40 feet away and see you once a week. But there's a little bit more, about me outside the Army, and I'm learning to talk about that too. I'm a mother of 2 adult children, and I'm a grandmother to 1 special boy and 2 amazing girls who keep me busy. I'm a graduate of Syracuse University for my undergraduate degree in international relations.
Go
And
Orange.
Go Orange, yes. And I am a graduate of Bowling Green State University with a master's in criminal justice. And when I got the degree, it kind of worked because I was an intel officer and I was making the connection with criminal activity, networking with insurgency and so forth. So it all it blended at the time. But I also I volunteer since I've been here in Florida. One of the I guess you would call it like a charter member of our alumni club. So I do the alumni club for Syracuse University here in the Tampa Bay area, and it draws from folks all over Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, I think Pasco County. So I think we're the only standing club for the university in Florida. And So I volunteer with them. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and I'm affiliated with the local chapter, and they keep me super busy. And then a little out of my norm and comfort zone, I was a volunteer with the 13th Circuit Court of Hillsborough County
Oh,
as a
wow.
guardian ad litem, advocating for children in the foster care system.
Oh, great.
And it's a lot of work. And then once once work kind of started getting a little hectic again, I kind of had to step back. But I do plan to go back and just help those children who are just um,
Yep.
heart tugging situations, and
So
to just be there to advocate for them.
not on this call, but later, I want to follow up on this because I've encountered an organization that helps with people that age out of foster care. So I'd love
Okay.
to see if there's something we could do separate from everything else we're doing,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Um, so you mentioned all the people in your family that served in the military, and it's interesting you bring that up because my brother was in the service, my father, grandparents in the Second World War, father was in Vietnam, and both my brother and I did time in the Middle East. Military service is increasingly like the family business. Like most people that are going in the military now had a military parent or grandparent, and that service ethos within the family unit is it's just getting bigger. Like I don't even know how much time recruiters spend with people that aren't from military families because so many kids. And when my son enlisted, I got to give him his enlistment oath.
Okay.
I got to give all of them that day the enlistment oath. So I asked how many people had a relative in the army or in the mill. Yeah, it was army, and over half raised their hand. It was crazy. Out of 20 some odd people that enlisted that day, over half came from military family, which really speaks to how how that community stays with people and it shapes families enough that the families continue to contribute to the community. So that's pretty awesome.
It and obviously we know, but once you're in it, it is like a family. It's a little sometimes dysfunctional, whatever,
And I
but
don't like all my brothers and sisters.
not all the time. But it's a family, and it puts you into, because
Mhm.
you're with people that there's a common cause, and so it's a family business, yeah.
In a way.
In a
So
way.
what I ask the guests to do, and I'm going to do it to you also, is ask you to share a story. You were in the army for 30 years, um, which is fantastic. Enlisted and officer, which is phenomenal as well. So if there's something, hopefully this is very organic, and the first thing that pops to your mind is the right thing to talk about. But I'd love for you to tell a story about your service.
So I don't know if it's necessarily a story, but um
Well, you're
in
going to
all
tell it
that
like a story.
I will. In all the time that I have spent, it's now being retired that and I think during the height of the Iraq war, the 20
Mhm.
years war, if you will, people would always say, "Thank you for your service." And I would say, "Oh, okay." It, people, I've heard stories that people are very awkward with what the response would be. And I've gotten so comfortable now, my response is always, "It was my pleasure." Not like Chick-fil-A, but it was my pleasure literally to serve. And I was a company commander for a recruiting company in Syracuse. So I went back home and put people in the army that I knew and knew
Yep.
me and knew my family and all that. Um, Everybody doesn't even qualify. Like I really got to
Right.
see that everybody doesn't even, number one, qualify to be in the service. There's either some physical or moral
Yep.
um, disqualifier. And I mean, these people really want to, see what it's all about. They want to have a passion and they just don't qualify. And so those experiences make me say, it was my pleasure. Sometimes it was demanding, but other times it was downright fun. Like, no kidding. I think I had the most fun when I was attending schools because people were coming, and even though the work might have been challenging or
Yep.
you just built so many relationships. I mean, I still remember people. I went to basic training in 1988. I still remember and have had some sort of connection with people from basic training all the way up to the last person I met before I retired, and in between, you know, um, that stick with me. And so again, it wasn't until I retired that I realized, you know, it was really truly a pleasure to serve. It was an honor to serve because I qualified, number one. And it was a pleasure because, as I stated, I was enlisted, and the Army, I sought programs that were available. And I mean, all my education was paid for, and it was just taking advantage of programs and opportunities that the service had. So it was truly a pleasure to serve and
I
meet great people and do fun stuff. So
so so I love that the way that you reflect on your time in uniform, because we're so busy when we're in uniform. We don't take time to appreciate what we're doing, the impact that it has, not just on us, but maybe on other people, um, the impact and the benefit that the nation can contribute or gain from that.
right,
Um, and it's not cliche or cheeky to talk about, defending your nation and helping, the citizens live a better life. They don't get to see it, but we get to experience it and become so routine that we don't think of it as being unique or special.
right,
And Joey and I talked about this a little bit during our conversation about, and because I asked him how he felt now that he was retired and people thanked him for his service. Not that anybody could tell, he looks homeless now with a giant beard and scraggly hair. Uh, but it was a good conversation because I have also felt awkward when people thank me for my service because it's a choice and I
right,
like doing it. So you don't need to thank me.
right.
Um, but I want to talk a little bit. Um, no surprise
Oh,
to anybody watching.
I
You're
do have I
oh
do have something if you do ask. What I think, the real quick, one of the best parts about being in the Army, though, and having, gone from where I went, it was mentoring. And that was so, like, I felt like an elder, but okay, there's that. But mentoring people is so,
yep,
you just, there were people who, and sometimes you were an official mentor, sometimes people latched onto you that you didn't even know that you were their mentor, and they would see you years and years later and tell you,
yep.
you said this to me and I took it. And you're like, I don't remember everything that I say. And so I hope that I'm speaking, not crazy. But I had a lot of people just come up, and and it wasn't anything, just all intuitive, just passing along, and just, again, going back to that family, just like you do with your younger cousins or your nieces and nephews. You want to see them be successful. Here's some tips that work for me. Here's some tips that can help you. Here's, not necessarily a leg up, but just being able to help kind of shape folks, and lead them to a better path was also one of a great joy.
So that's a really, it's, I had that pause because I was ready to ask the next question. And you wanted to go on, and I was going to ask a question about something like this because
Okay.
um, when I joined the service, I was in the Ranger Regiment, and I was, it was all males all the time, very pro, A type, highly competent, but all men. It wasn't until I joined the reserves and went into military intelligence that I started having women as leaders. I hadn't experienced working, not even female coworkers in the Army until I was in the reserves. And one of the best colonels I ever worked for was a gal. I'm not going to say her name, but she was an '06 full colonel. And at the time I was a captain, and I was mobilized and getting ready for a deployment. And I had, in the reserves, the captain's career course is broken up into two pieces. So I'd finished
Okay.
the first part, and the second part I hadn't scheduled yet. And she asked me when I was getting ready for my deployment when I was going to finish the captain's career course. I said, "Oh, ma'am, I'll worry about that later." And she stopped me and she said, "You're going to worry about it now. Why do you think you're going to worry about it later?" And I told her, "Well, I have a deployment coming up. I have to get ready to go overseas." She said, "You have to worry about your career too. It's only 2 weeks. Go get it done." And I'm so thankful that she had the foresight to prevent me from making a mistake. Even
Right.
though I was so interested in getting out there and doing my job, she's like, "That's important, but you have to take care of your education."
Yeah.
And it stuck with me. So now that's something that I do as an officer and a leader is I look for people
Right.
that maybe aren't making the right choices for themselves because they want to go after this thing, to slow
Yep.
them down and remind them that they have to prepare themselves for what's next.
Right. Right. So yeah, it's and it's rewarding. It really is.
So do you have so I love that people tell you that you were their mentor even though you may not have known it. Do you have some experience where somebody was very impactful for you during your career that sticks with you now?
So, funny story. Um, I was at a, so yes, the answer is yes. And I think I can say her name. She's retired Command Sergeant Major Andrea Marks, and she was my uh, finance specialist, so AIT drill sergeant. And she was Black from Jamaica and an E5 at the time. And she was the only female drill sergeant, kind of just what you said. She was the only female drill sergeant. This was in finance school, though. They were all men. She was the only female that was a drill sergeant. And she took all of the female soldiers, and I can say women now because I'm retired, but we say the females. But she took and had basically she had like mentoring sessions with us, and um and it was to help us to, you know, basically how you respect yourself, how you get respect as a woman or female in the army, how you set yourself above or on par or above your male counterparts, regardless of color. So she took us all aside, and she, again, did informal mentoring sessions with us. And she didn't know that she had done that for me. So I ran into her in 2018 at the annual AUSA conference.
Okay.
We were at the Eisenhower dinner in our blues and just all dressed up, and she was in civilian. She was in her gown, and I saw her, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" And I recognized her, and I told her, when I came through the course and so forth, and we exchanged numbers, and she came to my retirement dinner, and I guess she had time to think about it, and she said, she reminded us of, she just spoke just like she did when she was Drill Sergeant Marks, and so that, and I was 18 years old because I hadn't turned 19 yet, and that left, and you work with me and you see me, that left a lasting imprint on me that, I have to be respectful, respected, and I have to be on par, if not better, than whoever it is, because that's what life is about. It's not about your color, your gender, or anything else. Try to come to the plane, try to come to the
Yeah.
field level, not looking for um, a handout. And I don't want to get in trouble talking going too far into that, but hopefully you understand what I mean is that, I have to come to the table with something. And she just, and not that my parents didn't instill that in me, but it was just, out of home. 18 years old, and then here I am in my first job. Like, this is my job. And how do I go from mom and dad's house to my first job? How do I, what do I do? How do I navigate? And she was the person that helped me, I would like to say, help me navigate those rest of those 20, 29 years in the Army.
That's awesome that you get to close that loop with her. A lot, like, I'm Facebook friends with the colonel I mentioned. Her name is Debbie. Uh, so we occasionally exchange, greetings and whatnot. But I mean, gosh, this was in like 2011. So it's
Okay.
been 11, 12 years since I worked with the colonel, and haven't had one as good in the position that she had. Haven't had as
Right.
good leadership in that since then. So, okay, we haven't talked about VetCoin yet.
Okay.
Because of my time management capabilities, we have like 6 minutes left before before the free features on Zoom cut themselves off. So we got to talk about VetCoin now.
Okay.
So
I can talk VetCoin.
So spoiler alert, you talked about your work with other nonprofits. You talked about Syracuse, you talked about your alumni groups. VetCoin Foundation is also a nonprofit. So congratulations, you have a 4th or 5th nonprofit for your resume. What is it about the foundation that you find really interesting and motivating for you? And how is that going to be, do you see that being applied to helping veterans?
So I think it's the fact that they're all 501c3s, and with that network that I have anyway, and I hope that I've been doing it, to do just what we say, uh, um, connect, engage, and transform. And so the things that I am familiar with. So I'm familiar with the IVMF, the Institute for Veteran and Military Families with Syracuse University. So we're trying to, connect there. Trying to get, those organizations. I think it was the Liberty Manor, engaging, connecting and engaging those organizations, foundations, corporations, whatever it may be, that is for veterans. So, figuring out how to bring us to them or them to us.
So I love that that analogy or that explanation, because because I also work with other nonprofits and not-for-profits, which is apparently a big difference. And I keep trying, because we were looking at creating one for a not-for-profit. We were looking at creating a nonprofit. And I had to explain to the guys, like, look, like, once you're in that circle, you have to work that circle. That's a
Yeah.
community of itself. And I've been lucky that I've got to meet so many different organizations and people, and to think about the connect, enable, transform model and the helping nonprofits. I'm so excited about our ability to leverage the crypto space specifically to provide capital to other nonprofits.
Right. And hopefully transform the lives of veterans to where being a veteran is, again, is a cool thing. And it's not because being a veteran, it almost, there was a vision or an image that the veteran used to, the word veteran used to carry. And with what we're trying to do, we're trying to transform that into helping veterans and making that better, that you're not afraid to do the transition, and that there are things and places that wrap around you just like they did when you were, in the service.
So one thing that was very surprising to me, going back, way back, like 4 or 5 months in the VetCoin journey, when Aaron and Brian and Raf were getting ready to go down to Miami, it was like our first public engagement, and it was with a women-oriented nonprofit. organization. And you, I believe, because I wasn't part of that small conversation because, I work 40 feet away. But very enlightening about, the challenges that female veterans have that are above and beyond male veteran challenges. The homelessness is higher, challenges with employment are higher, access to capital is more difficult. And I hadn't really thought about that because I always thought of veterans as a collective,
Yeah.
not separated.
Right. Yeah. And I think there has been they're steadily gaining a emphasis on female veterans to help them with homelessness. And, while they're on active duty, some of them do suffer some terrible things, sexual assault
Yeah.
and harassment. But one of the things that I wasn't too aware of, because it didn't happen to me, some of them, suffer domestic violence at an alarming rate at the hands of other service members. And so there are challenges, and I do hope to do that as well, to try to, and as you can tell, I always try to inject the female voice into the things that we do.
And we
So
need
I
it.
hope to continue to do that.
That's awesome. So we're actually down to seconds now. So I have to say thank you before we get cut off. I appreciate your time this evening. Next time we do this, on our first year or second year anniversary, I'll do better, and we'll have more time to have a conversation, because I've very, very much enjoyed this small time we've had.
All right. Thank you, Russ. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Enjoy your evening.
You too.
And this is the funny part, because now I got to find out where to stop the record. Okay, here we go.